All right, you should be good to go.
See that?
No.
Nope.
Now it's happening.
Better? Okay.
Yep.
Well, here we are. Just, I appreciate you guys sticking with this thing. I'm hoping maybe a couple other people jump on along the way. As I mentioned, John King said he was really working at it, but he's got a lot of pressing deals at work. But you guys are amazing. So this is a little bit, by request, as we discussed in our last meeting. We want to do some things with the protocol and administrative procedures that are in addition to or surround the actual blowing of the whistle and awarding of the points. And then we'll look at our schedule as we conclude here. We want to do some things with preparation for assistant referees and then in our new entries. But if you've had a chance to look through this little agenda here, I hope I didn't miss too much in what it is that we do before, after, in and around the actual refereeing of the match. So I think, and please, you guys, all of you are quite experienced. If you've got a different way to do something or a tried and true method, please jump in and add to the conversation. I think most of us have made it a business to load up on cell phone numbers for coaches. Scott provides that for us early in the season, and have contact with athletic directors, secretaries, and all the right people in our particular areas about just double checking schedules. Wrestling is one of those things that for some reason seems to always be just a little bit tentative in its scheduling, and I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think, tell me if I'm wrong, I think most of us will check at the beginning of the week or maybe on Friday for a Tuesday, Wednesday match. Sometime midweek, we'll touch base with the secretary or the coach if we've got a Thursday, Friday, Saturday event that's going on, and making sure that we know which building it's in and what time coach is actually wanting to start. I know the Rio Rancho schools are notorious for wanting to start earlier. Oh, look at Elaine smiling. Yeah. So we in our central region, we kind of get used to a 5:30 start, which helps us, with our people that are working 8 to 5s and being able to get there on time. We do find situations where people either want to or need to start at a different time. And then our arrival on scene, generally, I think most of us, for some reason, know every back road and every unlocked gate and every unlocked door being held open by a paper cup or a Coke can, an APS, or we know those tricks about where to park and how to get in. I think in a lot of cases, we see somebody that's been tasked as a gym master perhaps before we see anybody else. And this may or may not be somebody that knows wrestling specific lingo and stuff, but those are things that we're just, if you don't know them, you want to introduce yourself. I put a note up there about entry. Whoever it is that's getting $15 for taking tickets tonight, doesn't automatically know that you're the referee in every case. And I know, I put a note in there about changing clothes. I know we have colleagues that like to run around town dressed in officiating clothes. I don't. But being cordial with the person that's at the gate. Sometimes they have a clipboard there of people that need to sign in. I think we need to understand what it is that they're up against, and start the evening off with being professional and happy to be there and letting people know that. Uh, here's one of note, and Dana, you alluded to it earlier. Everything is changing for us every day. I mean, by the time I got slides and videos put together for this particular presentation, it's already outdated. We don't know what we're up against. One of the suggestions that I'll show you in a little bit later is from the National Federation, and it's the idea of referees in whatever sport having individual places to change clothes. Lots of times that's not a problem for us because we change clothes like under the corner of the bleachers or something anyway. But there are places around that provide a changing room, and I think in the climate that we're up against. Hi, Mika. I think in the climate that we're up against with the current state of affairs, asking good questions and responding courteously is going to get us a long way. I put coach or coaches. I mean, you're likely to see the host coach pretty quickly. The visiting team may or may not be there. We want to make our pleasantries there. At some point along the way, if we already know the trainers, we want to say our howdies. And if not, there needs to be kind of the sketch of a working relationship between us trainers that may be on duty there, and see if they have any questions about how long is this time, how long is that time, what type of communication are we going to have if there's the suspicion of a concussion, what happens, what can a kid leave the mat if he's going to puke, how do you want this, do you want our kids to clean up the drops of blood on the mat, just talking through that stuff and making those professionals comfortable about our approach to them and what it's going to be like when they walk out on the mat. I put a question mark after healthcare professionals, but again, in the combination of modern climates that we find ourselves in, we need to agree, I guess, for lack of a better term, with the coaches that are on site, the trainers that are on site. If there is a healthcare professional with a different license, say an RN or an MD or somebody that's in the room, what exactly is their role and why are they there? It's nice to be in a building where we have a doctor or an RN or somebody that's got a different license than a trainer on site, but we need to know what it is that brought them there. If they're a parent, then again, we may find an unfortunate situation where their professional advice could come in handy, but we need to make sure that we're delineating roles, and perhaps have some conversations there. Table personnel, I mean, who knows what that's even going to look like, because that's another place where we're bound now with the social distancing and all the stuff that has to go on there. So there may be some pretty intense reassignment of roles in terms of who it is that we're dealing with. I think we're all kind of used to, three young people sitting at a rather small table, and one of them's keeping score, and the other one's keeping the clock, and the other one's doing the tapping or what have you. That's likely to look different the next time we see it. And then if there is an announcer, some schools have really great experienced announcers, and some schools not at all. One of the discussions that I like to have with an announcer is just the timing of, if they're going to do play by play, then I politely, but I need to let them know that it's really important to the coaches, the athletes, and the audience that my signal for points actually go up in the air before they start shouting takedown. Because just prevention is always better than cure. I'm about to change slides, so if anybody's got something to add, jump in there. I structured this thing so that we're looking, and there's some irony in this. We're looking at our protocols primarily for a dual meet first, and then we'll tweak that a little bit and see how it applies to tournament situations. But if we were to take the information that we have available to us now and project just a little bit about what it is that Sally and our governing body are going to be up against, man, dual meets might be pretty sparse. And that's something that I don't want to think about, but I think we do need to think about the additional expense in preparation for any event in any facility now really could jeopardize the short run for wrestling dual meets. At any rate, here's what has been and how it might be applied to what we hope will be at some point down the way. And again, if you guys have special tricks that have worked well for you, please inject those, because I'm anxious to learn your tricks as we go along. I always, and I phrased it locker room visit, I always hope that I'm going to get to go into a rather quiet, rather isolated environment to visit with the teams before a dual meet. I know how many times, especially in the central region, we end up meeting with teams, especially JV teams. We end up, and it's not a very comfortable environment. But if things were optimal, we would visit the locker rooms or the warm-up rooms of each of the teams. Not in any particular order, but I would ask athletes, if anybody, has, a thumb that's jammed, or if they're wearing tape, or if you've got, braces can be two different things. If you're wearing one of those extensive shoulder or knee braces, now's the right time for me to inspect that and make sure that it meets the qualifications, the safety qualifications for a brace. Of note, I will tell the athlete to please expect, when you come out on the mat, I am going to ask if I can touch that knee brace again. Yes, I've already inspected it, but the other kid's mom wants to know that I checked it. And so some of what we do is for that comfort zone for parents as well. Braces also means teeth straighteners, and that rule a few years old now, but we need to ask, is there anybody in here that needs to wear a mouthpiece because you have top and or bottom braces? And if that's the case, I'd like to see your mouthpiece now. I should inject here, Mondo, Willie, Jet, Mika. In the central region, it is very uncustomary for our referees to oversee at dual meets. And I don't know if it's like for you guys, but with the work schedule of our referees, it has been for some time now rather impossible for us to get there in time for weigh-ins. So if you're doing weigh-ins, a lot of this stuff would take place. You'd show your mouthpiece there. Same with a hair cover. Even though the rules about hair have relaxed, we're still going to find kids that wear hair covers, and they still meet the same criteria. They got to be attached, got to be the right material. And I put this note in there that I will explain quickly to the athletes that their coach is about to vouch for them, that whenever they step on the mat, they have checked in and they have appeared at check-in completely ready to wrestle. That means shoes tied, that means headgear buckled, that means, the wristband on if that's the deal, the whole deal. But I want to make it clear to the athletes that coach is putting his butt on the line here and what's at risk. So telling them, get your communication going, coach, your job, like hold them back a little bit, double check them, give them the last word of encouragement, tell them to buckle up, glance at their shoes. But I think the athletes need to know that the coach is putting a team point on the line there and some injury time. And the coach needs to know, that this kid needs a mouthpiece and that kid wears a hair cover, because they're busy with a lot of stuff. As I talk about my own personal points of emphasis, I've listened to a lot of my colleagues do pre-match discussions. And I guess I should point out my whole deal takes about 8 minutes. I don't, there's a lot of information that changes hands, but it's not a lengthy process. Kids are anxious to stay hot, and so we kind of have to encapsulate, some of this stuff to make it brisk. But a lot of people like to talk about what they're looking for in stalling. I don't. It is not unusual for me to remind high school athletes about the dual expectations that their spectators have of them. Their grandmother and the other kid's grandmother wants to see two polite, well-versed, gentle, considerate young people approach the mat and acknowledge each other. I don't want to say handshake in this day and age. They want to see a class act. Class act is part of the wrestling mantra. And then after what used to be a handshake, or what we hope still will be, then those same two grandmothers want to watch their grandchild try to dismantle another human being for 6 minutes and then turn into a nice kid again. And I think it's fair that athletes understand that both of those expectations are reasonable. That dismantling of another human being addresses stalling, but all of the class act stuff addresses the way that the public perceives us outside of the two handshakes. Some people like to talk about, their positioning, for their start positions. I'm going to be over here. I'm going to ask the bottom person to get set. Then I'll call the top person on. I will say set another time. And I tell kids straight up, I like to be a quick whistle. It seems like you guys, talking to athletes, appreciate a quick whistle. But if you're going to cheat somebody, then I'm going to slow you down ugly, because we still have to get a fair start. So whatever you want to add to that, your personal views, points of emphasis, do. I make it my business to thank and congratulate high school kids for whatever part of the season it is. I think it's important that we acknowledge the sacrifices and the efforts that they're making. I encourage varsity athletes to take time at the end of the night to thank their JV workout partners and counterparts, that are busy taping mats while they're getting warmed up. I encourage kids to acknowledge the other people that are in their room, and I want to make sure that they know that we appreciate the sacrifices that they make. The note there I made about problems, I want to ask athletes in front of their coach and ask the coach, what have you guys seen in your last 2 weeks? What have you seen any problems with officiating? Because I get the luxury of going to a meeting every second Monday night, and I can communicate things for you and be an advocate for coaches and athletes, so that we become a little bit more predictable and a little bit more consistent, and we can use what the athletes and coaches are seeing, to enlighten and educate and make our refereeing more functional. And I find that our coaches and athletes really appreciate being a part of that narrative. I termed it junk move because it just is, but I'll ask kids, if you've not got like a really funky tilt, or, you've got a weird deal that you do from if you're a Granby guy, or, or girl, and, what is it? Is there something special that you want me to be aware of in terms of getting into position for near fall, in terms of being able to reward a change in control, in a Granby situation? What is it that I see, for a change of control? And again, all of that conversation took me about 8 minutes. I think it took me longer to talk to you guys about it than it does to meet with the kids. I'm about to change slides. Does anybody have anything to add or amend on that?
Yeah, Rusty, on when you say your dual expectations and you're talking about respect in class, I'm just kind of curious how does that conversation go with the coaches and athletes? Like what's being said there?
Generally, and Jet, again, everybody's got their own little personal touch. The way that I phrase mine, I generally get the nods of heads and a kind of a pleasant chuckle. Again, my particular personality touch is to tell them, your grandmother wants to see you go out there and be a nice kid and keep your straps up and shake people's hands and be polite. And then you shake hands and she wants to watch you completely dismember another human being. And that gets a chuckle from the kids, but in the interaction, in the way that my personality interacts with theirs, it kind of drives home the point about us being a class act. And I hope I'm answering your question, but I think, you've got to use your tools. I come off as being that cute little old man, you're going to come off as being a recent, successful, younger man that's still, walking the walk of the wrestlers. So it may be quite different for the words that you choose to say. I guess what I would encourage is experiment with it a couple of different ways and discover what it is that works for you. I think we do all hold those same expectations. We want you to act right when you're over there in the chairs, and then we're not going to hang out and watch people hug each other when you're supposed to be trying to kill somebody. So some of that does talk about the stalling too. Mondo, go.
Hey, old man, I got something for you. A couple things. So locker room visit, man. We tend not to do the weigh-ins here either, and I'm telling you why. Because the coaches are harder on each other than we'll ever be, right? They will look like with a microscope, and if they want somebody out, they will do everything they can to make sure they get an advantage, right? So they're hard on them. And then when we get there, tend to be the judge or tend to adjudicate any of those issues if there's any. So I'm just trying to address what you were talking about earlier about whether we do the weigh-ins. Second part, yeah, when I tend to ask coaches and kids about officials, I don't want just negative, right? So if you're gonna tell me one or two negatives about Rusty, you're gonna tell me one or two positives about him as well, right? I want to hear both. I want to hear 2 up, 2 down. I just don't want to hear 2 down and 2 down and 2 down. And I kind of make it a point to and I'm asking that of coaches or kids, whoever wants to have a comment, they better bring both, a balance for me, right? And if they can't, they can't. But I at least make them think about something positive as well. And then lastly, junk moves. What was my thought about junk moves? What I tend to hear a lot more than anything is not so much what I bring to the table, but what the other team is doing, right? The other team is running this, and it's almost illegal. The other team is doing something like this, and you need to watch it because they're out there across the carotid artery, something like that. Those are the kinds of junk moves that I get. I don't know. I don't ever hear where somebody's saying, hey, I run this, or is this legal or not legal? Because when they ask you, is this legal? Well, they never put it illegal, right? And when you add another human being and they're trying that same move and you're off balance and then it becomes illegal, it's never illegal when they're staging it for you, right? So that's just another viewpoint of what you're talking about. Over.
Yeah, you led me to I was thinking of examples there. I've had kids that are leg people. I've had them ask, so when exactly is it? When can I lock my hands in a guillotine? You know, and I've been asked that several times, which I think is a legitimate question. The other thing that I have found in recent years is kids, and I, you know what? I've never had anybody point to a specific referee by name or by description. I generally pick up generalities like, you know, we're a tilt team, and we're having trouble figuring out exactly when something is new. You know, and so my answer to that is, you know what, that's a very common problem in today's wrestling. And so that's something that we do discuss in our meetings. I'll make sure it's on the agenda for our next meeting again. And here's what you can expect from me tonight. I will use words like, this is still the same. This is still the same. Now it's new, so that kids can predict. But I think your points are spot on there. You know, especially about, you know, the not doing weigh-ins and that sort of stuff. I don't know what it's like in other states as far as attending dual meet weigh-ins. It's pretty rare anymore, I think.
Up here in the north, in New Mexico at least, we do all the weigh-ins. In Colorado, we do not, and it sounds like none of you guys do the dual meet weigh-ins either. So we're the only ones, it sounds like.
Yeah, in Texas, they still do weigh-ins, dual meets or tries and quads, and you know, every Wednesday and Saturday, whenever we're on the mat, we're doing weigh-ins for the most part. I would probably say maybe not the JV clusters where they try to get them some matches. I think they try to do the best they can. But at the varsity level, boys and girls, they're weighing. We do weigh-ins all the time.
Else? Okay, so once we're out in the gym, I'm actually gonna look at the bottom of this first, and then we'll go back up to the top. But so Jet and Mondo, Willie, when you guys are working in Texas and you're doing weigh-ins, then part of that administrative procedure is the random draw for a starting weight. You know, and I have a bad habit of telling people what I really think. So take it for what it's worth here. In a lot of situations, even in situations where I've been at weigh-ins, and I know this is not outside the rule, but beside the rule somewhere, I will ask coaches, is there a weight class that it's better for you to end at? And if both coaches tell me this is going to come down to the wire and the 138 is going to decide it all, we'll put that one last. You can react to that however you want to react to it, but if it gets people fired up about a dual meet in Podunk, New Mexico on a Tuesday night, I'm okay with it. The intent of the rule with the random draw was to not have two heavyweights wrestling in an empty gym every single time. And so I personally, I have inferred from that if the quote unquote randomness of a starting weight makes it better for the event, it's not hurting me to start at 145. You know, and I know you've all got your own take on that. If the coaches, you know, and I have several coaches that are very traditional in their thinking. They're like, well, we just want to start at 106. If both of you want that, that's what we'll do. If you want a random draw, then here's the tools. You know, and I don't know, do any of you still have that cube that Tony made for us? It's a 14-sided cube with weights drawn on it. Some people use a deck of cards. Some people use popsicle sticks or tongue depressors. You know, some people, you know, if nothing else, you know, just you can ask, you know, some kids sitting in the bleachers, pick a number between 1 and 14. You know, there's a lot of ways to go about that, but you think on that as we're going through this other, and you know, if you got a big problem with any of that, let me know. I've got some video coming up here in a couple of minutes where we're looking at the placement of chairs, and I think we all know that under ideal facility allowances, we're looking for everything to be 10 feet away from the wrestling mat. So we've got the wrestling area, and then we've got the protection area on the mat, and then we've got 10 feet of whatever type of floor it happens to be. I don't know, and I'm anxious to hear what you guys face in the Las Cruces, El Paso area, and what you face in the Roswell, Carlsbad area, and what you face in the Four Corners area about our coaches feeling the need to have a foot on the mat during a dual meet. You know, and I'm one of those that I've walked on both sides of the fence. As a coach, there's absolutely no reason for me to be up close to the mat during a dual meet, because when it gets right down to it, grandma didn't pay to watch me. She came to watch her kid. You know, but man, you know, and then I run into situations like my dear friend, Coach Copeland at Cleveland High School. If you ask him in pre-match or ask him in a gym, Coach, I need you to be at or behind the chairs, the end. He will invariably say, that's not a problem for us, but not all of your colleagues make us stay back. So we're going to start here until you ask us to move. You know, I don't know about that one. We run into situations, as I'll show you here in a minute, where the chairs, the way the gym is configured, or if we have multiple mats, the chairs are right on the mat, and there's nothing we can do about it but adjust our mechanics. That goes back to the administrative protocol of communicating with coach. We're about to get to that pre-meet flip in the center of the mat, if that ever happens again. But opportunities to tell coach, look at that boundary over there. That mat's right on the wall. You're going to get a tight out of bounds call there. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? My communication wants to be preventative rather than punitive. You know, I personally, you know, I know everybody's got their deal. If we have cheerleaders at a wrestling dual meet, I'm celebrating. You know, I'll thank the asset. Who's the captain? Who's your captain? And go to the captain. So you know what? I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for making our sport look good. I hope you get excited tonight. You know, if you need something, if you need me to explain what something is, please ask. You know, the same thing. If there's a parent or team personnel, manager, student assistant, you know, that's got the video camera or the iPad set up to video, let's get preventative with that and talk with them before the bout start, before the match starts. Yeah, but you know, here's the best place for you to be. I need you to be aware of this. If they come barreling out of bounds, I need, you know, much like you would talk to the chain gang at a football game. If people come barreling out of bounds at a football game, you drop the chains because we've got a marker on them. If somebody comes barreling out of bounds at a wrestling, let the tripod go and take care of you. If you've got journalists, reporters there, then I think it's polite for us to ask, where are you going to be? You know, and you guys, you old guys know this about me. I'm a fanatic about letting people see their kid get their hand raised. If somebody from Channel 13 or whatever it is going to take the trouble to show up, I'm going to get some kid's face instead of his ass on the 10 o'clock news. You know, there's no reason for us to ignore opportunities to help our sport. Yeah, I've got some notes and intros. I want to ask the host coach, what order are you doing things in? Are you going to have the kids line up on the edges of the mat and introduce them? Do you not have a public address system? In which case, I'm going to go tell the other coach, hey, there's no introductions. We're saying a Pledge of Allegiance, and we're going. If you're having an anthem and intros, which is first? What are you doing first? Because that tells me where I need to be and whether I'll keep a jacket on for the national anthem and then take the jacket off to go to the pre-match. If there's if it's senior night and you're going to do flowers for moms and all that stuff, I'm going to go immediately and tell the other coach, hey, did you know that they're introducing their seniors? If you guys want to hang out in the locker room, I'll either come and get you or send somebody to get you when it's time for you to be out there. You know, and I'll show you a video here or actually a photo here in a couple of minutes where they had all of their little kid wrestlers and they're sitting right on the edge of the mat. You know what? If that's been communicated and I've had the chance to say, hey, here's what I need you to do, and here's what the danger is of you being right there. Situations where I can be okay with that. Not all of them, I'm sure. This is a still picture in looks like there must be 3 mats on the floor probably, but look at the placement of the chairs on the right side. Okay, so we got there as a refereeing crew. That is not something that we can fix. I mean, could we? We could tell them, fold those chairs up and have that team sit in the bleachers. Do we need to do that every time? Probably not. If you look at the placement of the coaches' chairs, they're set up in a tournament philosophy where the coaches are sitting at mat corner. Okay, so depending on personalities, I mean, if I'm walking in the building and meeting Steve Chavez at Los Lunas, then I'm likely to say something about, you know, we're going to treat this just like you were 10 feet away. So if you're going to be up bouncing around and yelling, that's too rusty, I need you to stand behind the chair, not in front of it. Because we're going to at least present ourselves publicly like people came to watch the kids and not you and me. This guy sings a mean national anthem, and I didn't pull the video out of respect for time on this deal. It is right now 6:45, so we're winding down. This is the one I was telling you where all the little kids are in there. You know, that's a situation that you got to call it on the fly. I can picture lots of situations where I may say, no, you guys gotta go sit in the bleachers. But I can picture a lot of other situations where I would just tell you, you guys are wrestlers, you know what's likely to happen here. So you got to get your boot scoot going if they're coming out of bounds.
Against each other on the way up, and they know a lot about each other.
There are several things here. One, and I am absolutely fanatic about this. You guys do what you want to do and do it because you want to do it. If we remain with the new parameters that COVID brings us, if we continue to have a meeting like this at the center of the mat, I want a coach at that discussion for each team every single time. Does he know what I think already? Yeah. Do I know what he thinks? Yeah. But the spectators that we have a responsibility to deserve to know that all of us were on the same page when this thing started. And that helps us when we get called to the table. We're having a discussion, not an argument, because obviously we like each other because we met before the match. You know, and that again, you guys got your own little idiosyncrasies. I got respect for that. You know, I want to coach at that meeting every single time. And when I'm doing this deal, I'm going to explain to the teams, okay, so you guys are home and you're wearing red singlets. Coach, is it okay if we call you red? Because a lot of places on the clock, home is automatically green. If you're wearing red singlets, you know, and likewise for the visiting team, you know, we're going to call you guys. Did anybody notice that this mat's down on the floor backwards? Red's on the right and green's on the left. You know, so I'll tell you know, here's where you're going to start, and it's opposite to where my wristbands are, and either we're going to live with that or I'm going to change it. But I'll tell them what I want them to do. I may tell kid, you know, please, captains, go back and tell your teammates that you're going to start facing your coach, not with your back to them. It just relieves stress on the athlete's part. And I think that's part of our responsibility. This is that same duel. And my curiosity here was, why did they not check in? If there's a good reason why they didn't check in at the table, you know, I guess somebody could explain that to me. But I have spent the last decade in a world where everybody checks in at the table, haven't you? I'm hurrying, folks, because I don't want to be disrespectful of your time. This may likely be a thing of the past. Kid just got hurt. Here's a kid visiting with the other coaches. Okay. And so here's what I got today from Coach Owen. The National Federation Rules Committee met in a work meeting 2 weeks ago, and they're having some discussions about what's appropriate for refs specifically in terms of COVID appropriate rules application. One of the things that came up was the handshake. You know, we have seen it all, and I'll zip through some slides and show you where I got them. You know, things that across all sports, the handshake, the high five, the fist bump, all that, the hugs, all that stuff is being discouraged. Thank goodness that the Wrestling Rules Committee pointed out to each other that it's kind of silly to ask two kids that just spent 6 minutes all over each other to not shake hands. And I'm saying, bravo, Rules Committee. Finally, somebody's got a glimmer of common sense. You know, and I was talking with Coach Owen today, and Dana, you'll get a kick out of this. I know we've got referees out there, and Jet, you know, you can tell dear Jason that he's one of them. He's dying to be the first guy that can penalize somebody for sportsmanlike behavior. I just, you know, I'm so proud of the Rules Committee that they're at least taking a look at those things. So I wanted you to look at this guy as he finishes up. Notice the referee's position. I know that this march across the mat and handshake may be a thing of the past, but coach is observant of the interaction. Coach acknowledges both coaches, tracks this one down. Folks, this is very, very appropriate behavior and rapport for us. And now the guy reports directly to the score table. If it's a paper score, we got to sign it. If it's track wrestling, we need to glance at the screen, talk to the operator and say, you know, are we sure we got the right stuff in here? You know, that's just part of our protocols. So I'm zipping through here out of respect for your time. I can come back to it if you want me to. This thing came out, I think, about 10 days ago. NFHS released this. It's a course. And you go to the NFH website. These are some of the slides that are in there, and I am going kind of fast through there. But I'm not always a fan of what the National Federation pumps out. This is well done. It takes about a half hour of your time. You do have to register and give it your email and stuff. It's a free course. It prints out a certificate for you. Yeah, folks, I think this is something that we want in our toolbox as we prepare for 2020, 2021. I highly, highly recommend that course. So, and again, I'm zipping through there. You know, we are going to learn, Coach Owen mentioned today, we're going to learn about handshakes. We're going to learn about face coverings. We're going to learn about very COVID-specific applications that are appropriate in the sport of wrestling, and it's going to dictate how we behave. I also am in conversation with track wrestling, and they're in the process of designing now a substitute for a whistle. You know, what do we do when we get a referee that wants to wear a face mask? Most people have realized that blowing a whistle creates those dreaded droplets. I know that South Dakota hosted a tournament last weekend. It was a state championship for the Olympic styles. So they had referees blowing whistles, but they did not allow athletes to shake hands, and they did not allow the referee to raise an athlete's hand. Does that seem in some ways appropriate for appearances? It does. Does it violate some of those rules of common sense about wrestling? It does. Some of what we do is going to be to us, and some of what we do is going to be either group or individual decision, and we need to be prepared. I found this a little bit troubling. Everything in California starts in January now. Different states are using different timelines. It is 6:55. I don't want to be negligent in terms of time. There's some differences in how we achieve our administrative roles in a tournament setting. Generally, we're on present for the weigh-in and skin check. If you happen to be that tournament lead official, you know, you need to meet with or poll or assign people to a rotation. You need to decide how you're going to pick your finals, whether it's, the random draw or seniority or however you happen to choose to do it. There's a variety of methods there. Where is it that, and work with your tournament management, where is it that when we're between matches, needs to be somewhere out of the way. I prefer that it not be in the center of 4 mats. How are we taking turns with meal breaks and bathroom breaks? And some of you guys already know this about me. Man, I'm a freak about having bottles, Gatorade bottles or water bottles all over the center of a mat. I think it makes us look like a cockfight instead of a high school event. And I think it's dangerous to have those things on the mat. At our coaches meeting, we need to discuss with them, what it is we're looking for. If you can have a scorekeeper immediately behind you, that's a decision you make based on space. If your scorekeeper is going to be anywhere in the vicinity, they count as one of your 2 team personnel. That's a legitimate decision. You got to make those decisions according to space. We need to outline for coaches what it is we want kids to do when they check in. It does no good to talk to the referee, and my name is. They need to talk to whoever it is that's running the track wrestling scoreboard or the laptop, or they need to check in the same way every time. And then we need to establish a protocol for athletes. My deal is walk to the table and make sure that they know your last name. My last name is. And the same thing for me. I want to walk to the table and say, are you okay with that? And then we can go to the next match. Worst case scenario, this is inside the website where you go to NMAA forms. If you have to make an incident report, it is within 24 hours of the incident, and we can talk about that more when you need to. So here's what we got scheduled in the future. And John Wooden was a great coach, no matter what sport, a great coach. I am open to questions. I think I went over my normal 40 to 45 minutes of time. I'm open to any comments, any questions, any tricks of the trade that you superstars have available. Then Dana, there's Mika.
Hey, Rusty, I don't know that there's really any tricks as much as it's more just kind of taking from the wheel from everybody. I think having the ability to work with a good coach, you just can choose. And there's so many different things on your slide. I think you talked about and you made emphasis that I think I don't want to say we take for granted, but I think so much of that stuff, because of the sport and the honor that comes with it, so much of that stuff is already kind of set in place, So, with the goals and I think Mondo did it just right. Like, I don't think we really, a lot of those weigh-ins, those coaches are so much harder on each other when it comes to those. So I don't want to beat a dead horse with that, but these meetings are good and well appreciated. Yeah, gosh. I don't think there's any new inventions. I think it's just like I said, picking from the wheel and just improving and just kind of putting little tweaks and twists on it.
Thank you.
And Rusty, I didn't have any comments necessarily. So as you had mentioned during your presentation, so much of this is very fluid at this moment because we don't really know what's going to happen or what requirements are going to come up. I know in volleyball, for example, they are going to use handheld electronic whistles as the plan. So there's a whistle that you hold in your hand and push a button and it actually makes a whistle blast, much like one that you would put in your mouth. So we're looking at those. A lot of it'll just kind of depend on if face masks are still being required by the state at that time, or if officials feel more comfortable working with them or not. So we'll be playing a lot of this by ear. July 15th is the date that Sally has given for releasing the timeline of when sports will be occurring. Since the governor had canceled football and soccer, we're trying to get those played in the spring. So Sally is working on well, I'm sure she already has it, but there's going to be a schedule coming out that'll show what those seasons are going to look like for all sports, around July 15th, which I believe would be Wednesday. I did want to say thank you to Rusty and also make a little announcement while I've got you all on the webinar. Rusty was actually selected by the NMOA Hall of Fame committee to be an inductee into the 2020 NMOA Hall of Fame. It's pretty exciting because in my tenure, I don't recall the last wrestling official to have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. And certainly, we all know what Rusty's done for the sport, not only in New Mexico, but across the country. He's an ambassador for this sport, and was a unanimous decision by the committee. So Rusty, congratulations, and thank you for everything that you do for interscholastic wrestling here in New Mexico and abroad. So of course this year we don't have a state clinic, so we usually have a banquet in conjunction with that. And we'll be doing the actual formal induction next year at our banquet. So let's hope that we are able to get back together and have people in the same room so that we can get him properly inducted. But Rusty, congratulations, and absolutely well deserved. So I just thought I'd take this opportunity and venue to publicly honor you. We'll be posting some stuff on social media. If you're on our Twitter or Facebook, you'll be able to see that. And we'll find other ways to honor you until we get to actually induct you into the halls. Congratulations.
I feel honored just to be here right now.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate everything you continue to give and do as an on the mat retiree. So we appreciate you, still wanting to help out and, get officials in our state better. But that's all I had. So we'll keep everybody as updated as possible on all of this COVID stuff as we hear from the Federation, as we hear from the state. Some of you were on before we started, and I was talking a little bit about how every time we think we have it figured out, something else changes. So as I had written in our little newsletter earlier this month or last month, I don't know, all the months are the same at this point, just be flexible. Officials are some of the most flexible people I know just because of what you do night in and night out as officials. So stay flexible, be patient with us, and understand that a lot of it is outside of our control, but we're doing the best we can. Just like you all, we're trying to make sure that kids have the opportunity to participate. I know Mika's on here, and he's a coach as well, so he knows the importance of that firsthand as he works with his student athletes. But we will do our best to get those kids back out playing the sports they love, and of course getting my kids back out officiating the sports they love. So that's super important to me. We'll continue to have these webinars to keep y'all engaged in the interim and during this pandemic as we continue to navigate it. So certainly if you do have suggestions for subjects, the one tonight actually came from a suggestion from an official. So if you've got something you want us to cover, shoot those my way, and I'll get them to the assigners, and we can look at getting a webinar put together. So right now we have about one a month until September, I think, Rusty. And then if we need to increase the frequency, we will. Sorry, I'm being long-winded, but all this just came into my head. Planning ahead for this year, we'll probably end up doing local meetings virtually as well. So that'll be something for us to look at. That'll help our one official who lives in Roswell be able to attend local meetings from the comfort of his couch. So, we're going to try to find some stuff virtually with our assigners and group leaders to come up with curriculum and just have the same curriculum each week for the state. So while this pandemic is a bummer, the silver lining is it may help us with some of our consistency issues so that our officials are hearing the same message from our assigners and group leaders across the state. So stay tuned. We'll keep you all posted as we find everything out. And thank you so much for spending a Monday night with us, and appreciate everything y'all do for kids. You mean the world to me, and I'm just honored to work with you every day. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
You bet.
Thanks,
Love you
Dana.
guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dana. Take care.
Hey, Rusty.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Dana, and congrats, Rusty.
Yeah, big fan.
Have a cold one for us, Rusty.
Or two, whatever.
Okay, there's two now.
I mean,
Good to see everybody.
however many you want. It's fine. It's all you. Hi, Nate. Nate, thanks for being on. Where'd you go? Oh, I was thanking Nate and he left. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, kiddos.
Bye.
Bye-bye.